Hi Stephanie and everybody else. Welcome to the Entomology collection of the Royal Ontario Museum. We have over 1 million specimens in the collection here, ranging from pin specimens, such as you can see a bunch of beetles out here, to stuff that's in ethyl alcohol. Some stuff we were able to pin dry, and that's a great thing about it because they're easy to handle. You just pick them up by the pins. And then the other stuff that's in alcohol, it's mostly juvenile, immature forms of things like caddisflies and caterpillars, because you can't pin those because they'll just shrivel up and dry. As I said, we have over 1 million specimens here. In terms of the size of specimens, the smallest thing that we have in the collection here is about 2 millimeters in length, so it's minute. That's a fairy wasp. It's considered the smallest specimen object in the entire museum. And then we have big scarab beetles that range about this big in size.
Wow.
If anybody ever tells you they see an insect bigger than that, don't listen to them. It's not possible. Way back, millions of years ago, when there's more oxygen in the atmosphere, yeah, there were giant insects there. So I have been here for closing in on 35 years. I started in 1985 on gave myself a 5-year plan. It's never really good with math, as you can tell. And it's a great job. It's not just a job, it's a career. I love what I do. It's never the same day, 2 days in a row, unless I want it to be. My job ranges from going out in the field and collecting insects as part of biodiversity studies, because a lot of people don't think much about insects and arachnids, which are spiders and things like that. But they're basically if you think about the food web, they're at the bottom, because everything feeds on something that eventually starts by feeding on insects. And if somebody wants to determine whether an area, let's say a tropical forest, should be protected as a park, they need to know what is in there first. So we travel around the world. We've been throughout North America, Central, South America, spent many years in Southeast Asia, tropical forests, collecting there. So it's our curators who are responsible for identifying the species that we collect and describing new species. And in sheer numbers of different species of insects on this planet, there are about 1 million described or known to science right now, so that we have a scientific name assigned to them. So let's say the monarch butterfly, that's the common name. The scientific name is Danaus plexippus. So that's the scientific name. It's been described. There are, as I said, there are about 1 million already described, known to science. There are upwards from about another 30 million still waiting to be discovered and described. So if you want employment opportunities, guaranteed job security in the field of entomology. Compared to, let's say, mammalogy, there might be 10,000 species of mammals on the planet, and virtually all of them are already known. So that's why when somebody describes a new species of mammal, it makes international headlines around the world. Somebody describes a new species of insect, they go, yeah, well, it's only 11 o'clock in the morning. Go describe a couple more this afternoon. Let's keep up the pace.
Have you discovered any?
I haven't described any, but I have my last name assigned to, I think it is now 6.5 species.
6.5?
6.5, yeah. When I was out in, where was it? Palau with our ichthyology curator, because I'm also a scuba diver. So okay. I got to do coral reef fish surveys. So we were scuba diving there, and he discovered a new species of fish. So the genus name is Phaea, the species name is Dabra. The DA starts is for David, his son's name, and the Bra, the BRA, represents my first name, Brad. So I get the butt end of the fish. But I've had some stoneflies and mayflies and some other things that are named, like the genus name, and then Hubley is the species name. So I'm pretty honored by that. Yes. So yeah, as I said, it's never the same day twice in a row unless I want it to be. Aside from field work, I do public programming, so going up to the gallery, giving show and tells there, going to schools, giving tours there, and a lot of my job is sending out the specimens that we've collected over the years to specialists around the world, because no one entomologist can possibly know every species of insect on the planet. So in this case, you can see all these little tiny beetles that I've got on the counter here. They belong to one family called darkling beetles. And so we loaned these out to a graduate student a few years ago, and he's now assigned a name to each of these. And so it's now my job to separate them into their individual species, database them, and then get them into the collection. So that's the kind of thing that I'll do on a weekly basis. I'll search online for other specialists around the world to say, hey, I've got these really cool flies. Would you be interested in looking at them? And if they say yeah, then I'll package them up, send them out to them, and then a few years later they've done their research on them, and they'll send them back, and we now have scientific names associated with them. And one of the cool things that we're doing now is we have this super duper digital imaging system. It's called a Kiot's microscope camera, and it can image little tiny beetles of this size. Wow. And it'll take multiple images at different depths of focus and stack them, and then you can blow it up. So something this small, you can see, we can image it so it increase the resolution, the size of it, up to 1,000 times.
So it's a microscope and a camera. It's
a microscope and a camera, so it's high-end macro photography. Wow. And we actually have some of the images of these things on eMuseum now. You can look at the ROM's website and go to the online collections and search for entomology. You'll see these things, and you can zoom in and you get really up close and see all the facets on something like a fly's eye. Wow. People just see the fly, but they never realize just how intricate these things are. Yeah, and so then this is other stuff that we had photographed as well. These, most people think all the really cool insects come from the tropics. These are silk moths that you can find here in Ontario.
These are native species?
These you will find here.
Wow, they're so big.
Yeah, they're huge. So this is a really common one. This is the Cecropia moth. That's the cocoon of it. This is one of my favorites, the Luna moths.
Beautiful.
Last time I found those, they were up on the Bruce Peninsula. But you can find the Cecropia moths here in the GTA. And you typically find them in mid to late spring. And so we've had all of these photographed so that we can get those images online as well. We have this push to get 100,000 objects and specimens photographed and made available to the public online over a 5-year period. Natural history has tended not to do that in the past because most of the things were small like this, and to try to focus on them was really difficult. But now that we have that new imaging system, we're able to do that.
That's a very ambitious goal.
Yeah, so I set myself up so every morning at around 7:30, 8 o'clock I'm in here and I get onto that imaging system for a couple hours and drink my tea and just take one image after another.
And so you're using the camera with the microscope for eMuseum as well?
Yeah, that's the primary purpose that it was purchased for, was to do that. But we also have our curators who are using it to image specimens as part of their scientific research program as well. So instead of an illustrator having to draw something, like looking under a standard microscope and then trying to illustrate it and draw it and back and forth, now you can image something like this in probably about 3 or 4 minutes.
Is the level of magnification enough that you see that it'll eventually replace a microscope?
Well, no, because it is a combination. It's a combination of microscope and camera and software. So what you do is you put the specimen and you focus, let's say, at the highest point of the specimen, and then you say, okay, I want to focus at the lowest point, and you tell how far to scan it. You hit a button, and then the stage just moves around, the camera goes up and down.
Wow. And
then afterwards, you just let the software do its trick, and it stacks all those images together, so you get one beautiful, nice specimen that's completely in focus, if you've done it right. And it took me quite a while to figure out all the ins and outs of it, to finally get something that I was happy to put online. And I interacted with Brian Boyle, a retired photographer, many times. Say, Brian, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? What do you think of this? And I kept getting feedback from him. I thought I was going to annoy him, and eventually he said, no, tweak this, try this, try this. He was great about that.
Excellent. So there's collaboration then that goes beyond just entomologists.
Oh yeah, There's. I don't think anybody in the museum works in isolation. They always work in tandem with someone else. Another example of that is we have just completed the migration of all of, up until about 2 or 3 years ago, every database within every collection in the Art and Cultures Department and Natural History, they were all separate databases, and they never talked to each other. I and Rob Mason in Art and Culture, we spearheaded, we were the coordinates for natural history, coordinator of natural history and art and culture, to get all those disparate databases into one system called the museum system. So now we have one mega database that has, I think, 4 million records in it. So if somebody wanted to say, show me everything that the museum has from Vietnam. 3 years ago, they'd have to go and search through 20 different databases. Now they go into one database, type in the country Vietnam, and boom, pull up all the records.
Everything. Wonderful.
And the great thing is we can attach images, video, documents to the system.
That's another ambitious project that the museum has undertaken.
We just completed the 3rd major phase of it, and the last phase is getting the library and archives records in there. So it's going to make it a lot nicer to do our job here.
Excellent.
If you can't tell by now that I'm enthusiastic about what I do and what I love, then you haven't been paying attention to anything I've said.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Brad.